When I bet, I like getting something back, even if I lose. That's why I bet with Fanatics Sportsbook. When I place a bet with them, I earn fan cash, win or lose. I can flip fan cash into bonus bets or use it for new team apparel on Fanatics.com. Download the Fanatics Sportsbook app and let the fan cash flow. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents call 800-327-5050. New York residents call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, where no matter what happens in the next several weeks, at least we could say we didn't lose to the fucking Nets. And on that note, very happy to welcome for the last time in this regular season, hopefully not for the second to last time in the season as a whole, Jeremy Cohen. Hello, sir. How are you?
It's a loaded question, John. I'm good. The answer's good, I guess.
That's great.
I guess. How are you? I'll start there. How are you?
I'm great. I sound like every time I talk about like my personal life, I come off sounding like the worst father, and I'm going to double down on that now. My wife took the kids to visit her family today in Long Island. So from 12 o'clock until about 6:30, I was by myself, sat home, watched the game, which was perfectly fine. Watched Clippers Warriors, watched a little bit of Masters, wrote my newsletter for tomorrow. I was a pig and shit. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Okay. I built a bookshelf and I had some help, but it looks
good.
Does. Yeah. Got some nice plants to finally hang from it. So business is booming. But if we're talking basketball, what a week. What?
Did you pick 4-0?
We don't have to talk about it. It's not something we're talking about, John.
You said if we want to talk
Why would you commit that level of violence when we're not even at the 2-minute mark? Like, why would you say that? No. Yeah, I picked 4-0. You got me. I thought they'd actually win some games, but apparently that's not of interest in certain times. So, it's whatever.
So we're going to talk about, we're each going to do our top 3 questions for the postseason. That's the main thing for the show. But let's talk a little bit about this week. I mean, I did the post game after the Boston game. I did who the hell did they lose to this week? I did the post game after the Detroit game, which I think definitely ruffled some feathers because I largely laughed off that game because I thought they came out pretty unserious. And I thought like the final 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever it was, were also very unserious to the point that we were like asking ourselves questions about, did they tank that game? Did they intentionally lose that game? Is that even allowed under Tom Thibodeau? But it was something about it that didn't get me bothered. And then the exact opposite happened on Friday night when there was and we watched the game together. Mm-hmm. There was very much something about that game that did get under my skin. And from what I can tell from people who still engage on social media, got under a lot of people's skin. And I don't blame anybody for that. And then they won a game today where their 6 most important players played a total of 6 seconds. So yeah, I don't really know what to make of all this. I think like even 24 hours or so after the Cavs loss, I think I was still a little overreactive. And now it's been almost 48 hours since, and I'm like, all right, let's like take a deep breath. But I can understand anyone who has no interest in taking any deep breaths or any breaths of any kind.
I wasn't expecting much from this past week.
Okay.
And yet, the Nets game aside, because that meant absolutely nothing except for Brooklyn.
Comb.
Well, sure, but I yes, in the grand scheme of this season, great, nice for Comb, yes. But in terms of other than potentially screwing over the Nets with where they would pick in the draft, now they're locked into the 26th seed, or the 26th pick as opposed to anywhere else. There wasn't a whole lot to be gleaned from this game. It was really the Celtics game frustrated me because it felt like you're so close. They're clearly without Jaylen Brown for much of this experience, and you're home and you have an opportunity to win and you couldn't. And then you came so close to doing it. And it would have been nice, right? Nice little statement win, whatever statement you want to make about it. And didn't happen. And then of course, yes, the Pistons game, which I don't know what to make of. It's a team that the Knicks knew we're probably going to see them coming up, may not. If there were concerns of, hey, maybe we should try to lose games so we don't play the Celtics, that should have been an organizational decision made a while ago. But even still, lost that game. Bizarre game. Okay, fine. It's the Cavs game that got under my skin because it's now the second game in a row where the Knicks have blown a 15-plus point lead and lost. And that had not been something they had done for, 70? Yeah. So, yeah. But it wasn't just that. It was the act of how they lost. They were able to put those leads up in the first place, but then it all came crashing down. And it's kind of you don't want to sound the alarms and crash out, right? I do everything in my power, especially when we come on here on a weekly basis where we have the opportunity to reflect on games that didn't just happen. So for fans, it's oftentimes in the moment that they're maybe interacting with our level of content. What we do is let's take it down a notch. Let's let it simmer. We can then talk it through. And I'm still shaken by that game. And it may have absolutely nothing to do with the playoffs, right? There's the regular season, there's the playoffs that can be completely different animals. And yet at the same time, when I hear certain comments about what needs to be fixed, everything, right? When I need to hear about Josh Hart's opinions on fixing the team, and we have just seen game 81 of an 82-game season, I'm going to be concerned. And it can mean absolutely nothing moving forward. It could be that the Knicks just didn't take things as seriously as such, but it just feels like this season has been so much of, well, we know some of the things that work, and we know a lot of things that don't work, but there are a lot of things that we simply don't know. And it's a little too late for us to explore them because it just is. You're going to stick with what's maybe more comforting because the regular season would have been the opportunity to keep learning and growing. And now you're going to lean on your best points of data and to adjust. And it's the lack of the adjustment that has concerned me because this series, let's forget about these multiple. It's this single one that's more important right now. It's Detroit Pistons. It's the adjustment factor. We know that the Knicks were able to do well against a JB Bickerstaff coached team, different roster, different squad, different year, all of those things. But when I hear we got to fix everything in April, it's really going to bother me. And it could just be, hey, an off night. It is what it is. You know, oftentimes you and I, we play the role of therapist for Knicks fans. But right now I feel like the patient. I feel like the person who is saying, why should I, knowing the talent that's on this team and everything, why should I have the level of confidence and faith in this team when they are consistently losing to the best teams out there and they are blowing leads to these very good teams that they should have been winning those games. And I can say all of that still feeling like the regular season's behind you. It's a new season ahead of you. You take each game at a time, each opponent at a time. And yet I don't feel confident. And the craziest part here is at the watch party when the seating was still up for grabs. Andrew, and this is no shade on Andrew whatsoever, but Andrew made a comment and he said, yeah, well, if the Knicks are trying to lose, they're two back in the Pacers in the loss, or 2 ahead of the Pacers in the loss column. And I looked at him and I said, do you know how messed up it is that the mindset that anyone is feeling about what is now a 51 win team at that moment was, well, if they lose more games, then they might be able to avoid Boston. Like, screw that. It bothers me that that's the point that some of us have gotten to. And I can say all of that and reset and be ready for the playoffs to cheer on the team and be very excited. But as things stand right now, I don't feel great.
Yeah. You said a lot, and you said a lot of good stuff. I'm going to try to hit one at a time. First, I'm going to start with a question of my own. I'm not really sure what they were trying to accomplish this week. Because
the same question.
Like, it seems from the comments that we got afterwards that they were using they certainly were using the Boston game to prove a point to themselves, to the Celtics, to everybody on the league, that hey, we're ready for this. And boy, oh boy, did they come close to proving that point. I'll get back to that in a minute. And then it seemed like that was also the goal against the Pistons and against the Cavs, even when it became evident, but like well before the end of the Cavs game, that they like the standings didn't matter. Like it all the more reason why it seemed like they were trying to prove a point. And yet, Thursday against the Pistons, they go out there and they trot Precious Achiuwa out there for 40 minutes and PJ Tucker out there for 27 minutes. And like, here's the thing. It wasn't really bad. Like, Precious played really well. PJ Tucker played really well. They got like some of my stars of the game. But it was just like very odd. And then it's almost as if when the starters checked in down the stretch, it's almost like they didn't know what to make of like what they were trying to accomplish in the game. And they sure as shit played like it down the last 5 minutes of the game. And then the Cavs game, like, they came out shooting like crazy. And then as the lead was getting chipped away, were they playing the sorts of lineups that they would be playing, like, for even putting aside the players who were not playing in the game, and who was out of the game? Cat was out of the game, and who am I forgetting was out of the game against Cleveland? It was just Cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just Cat. Even putting that aside, I still think they were like, they tried out some lineups as that lead was like lessening, that were like, all right, well, this would, if this game really, really mattered, these would not be the lineups that they were trying out. And then before you know it, it was down to like 12, 13, 14 points, whatever. And then it's a much different ball game. And then you got the closing stretch of that game, which was distressing in just in terms of how they could not stop Cleveland at all. What I will say is, if the last 5 seconds against Boston goes differently, and either the shot misses or they foul and they win the game that way, whatever happens, and then they come out against Detroit, they start the game as they did, they play the exact same way, the exact same lineups, exact same results over the first 3.5 quarters, and then just instead of bringing the starters back in the fourth quarter, they just keep the scrubs out there and they lose the game by 15 or whatever points, no one would have a blessed thing to say about the game, and no one would change their very positive feeling coming off the Boston game one iota. Then you go on to the game against Cleveland, maybe play your starters in the first half, maybe don't, whatever. But same deal. Like, either sit the starters altogether, or just don't have the starters in the second half of the game. And again, everything's great. Today happens against the Nets, and we are now going into the season, or the postseason, the season, the only season that matters for this team, with like arguably the best vibes that we've had all year about this team. Mm-hmm. And what really changed? What's different from that scenario that I just laid out? A Jason Tatum 3-pointer that was one of the best shots you'll ever see. Mm-hmm. The last 5 minutes of a game against the Detroit Pistons, and then the last, let's call it 15 to 20 minutes of a game against the Cavs, in which we should at least point out, and I didn't think of it until literally we started recording this. It was on the second night of a back-to-back for whatever it's worth. It just deserves to be thrown out there. So all that, and like, and I get that we still got the comment. The Tibbs comment is fascinating to me because it sure sounded like a guy who was trying to get through to his team, which is maybe even more distressing than what he was saying. Is like if like he's trying to get through to his team after game 81, is that just a coach who's being paranoid and is like, or is it a coach who realizes something is slipping away here, and I don't know what other buttons I have to push, so I'm just gonna like push the big red emergency button. Obviously, we don't know that. And then the Josh Hart comments, the most troubling part of the Josh Hart comments, and I noted this in a short newsletter I wrote on Saturday, where he said, we got to find what makes this team successful. And like Josh Hart says a lot of shit, and most of it goes in one ear and out the other, as far as I'm concerned. I wonder if that was just like he was giving his media spiel and like it was something that popped into his head. But boy, what a thing to say after game 81. That to me was more concerning than the everything, right? Comment by Tibbs. We got to find out what makes this team successful. I hope they know, at least internally, their vision of like, okay, this is how we need to play and this is what we need to do to win games. So I'm on both sides of the fence here. There's a part of me that I understand the, not panic, but like our favorite word, the level of consternation. And then there's another part of me and be like, look, it's been a really weird last like 40 some odd games. There's been a lot of injuries. The starting five over the last 30 plus games has played together for 6 games. Out of it, I think it's at least 30. Whenever what was the Laker game where OG went down? Like since then, it's been only 6 games. The starting five has been together. And even some of those games, they didn't have all their bench pieces. So like, I think that factors in. I think it's like we've known for like months that this team was probably going to be the 3rd seed. I think that factors in. It's been a noisy season. So like, I think all of this stuff matters. And then there's like tangible X's and O's stuff. Like Josh Hart has shot 51% from 2-point range for the last 2.5 months, which is a fucking problem.
Yep.
And there's other things in that nature. So in that vein, so like, we'll get into it with our questions, but like, I don't know. I want to go back to the thing you said about the questions that we still have unanswered. That's the last thing I want to hit before we move on to the questions. But anything else come to mind based on like anything I just said that like you're curious about or whatever?
No, I think what you said was very on point. Where there are a couple plays that could have gone your way where the vibes are very different.
Yeah, but
they didn't go that way. And your first point I thought was the strongest and it hit the hardest, which was you're not sure what the purpose of this week was, what the intention was. Like, what was the goal? What have we learned from this week? What can we take away? I'm baffled. And I understand that it doesn't have to be about what us as fans learn.
No,
I know you're not right. But
that's what I want to know. Did they have
I agree. I'm very confused as to what it is. And did that Celtics game change their goals? And if it did, why are they waiting until April to adjust their goals with 3 games left?
I don't know.
That's the real thing here is, will the real New York Knicks please stand up? Because I don't know who they are. Yeah. It's been that level of inconsistency. And to your point of players being out of the lineup or just not performing or whatever it is, the lack of confidence is not from the playing ability. It's from a lot of the continuity. It's from where these players are able to mesh in a way where the stakes matter. And are they treating the regular season as a warm-up, or is this a reflection of this current team's, not everything as a whole? Because it's very easy to suddenly crash out and say, oh, this whole roster, no, it's just this team. What is this particular squad's DNA, and how does it translate to the moments that matter the most? Because we've seen them do well. There's just something about this team that doesn't give me the same level of confidence that I've had in the past.
So I started doing research for like newsletters and such this week. And one stat that I found, which I'm going to choose to be a little encouraged by, is in clutch games this year, or games featuring clutch situations this year. They are 19-12, which is the 5th best winning percentage of any team in clutch situations this year. The only teams that are better are the Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder. Shocker there. And the Pacers, who pulled one clutch win out of their ass after another. It seems like every win they've had over the last month has been a clutch win, and that in seemingly inexplicable fashion. So like, there is something in their DNA where they do tend to do well in close games, this week notwithstanding. And so like, there's that. But the thing I want to go back to before we move on to our questions is, speaking of questions, is you're like, there's still so much that we don't know. And to me, far more than like anything, like any specific thing that they have done or not done, or any player has done or not done, you know, I'm spoiling Monday's newsletter, but like I wrote, I didn't, and you and me were on the same page. We didn't give a shit if this, not that we didn't care. Our goal this season, it would have been nice to win a championship. It would have been nice to get to the finals. And maybe that stuff still happens, and it'll be wonderful if it does. But like, I think as long as me and you could sit here after the year and be like, okay, we now know what the blueprint is for this team moving forward. We saw what worked this season. We saw what didn't work this season. We feel confident that this general core of players, like, there is this path for them to be a successful, contending NBA franchise. And if there were some tweaks that they needed to make in the summer, that they would be able to make those tweaks. After 82 games, we're sitting here in a position where it's not even not being able to make certain adjustments this summer. It's, for me, not having really any clearer of an idea as to what specific adjustments need to be made after 82 games than I had before game 1. And that is not hyperbole. Going into game 1, I was like, boy, you know, Mitch is going to come back at some point. I wonder, like, okay, well, it might be late, but at some point we're going to figure out, is like the cat at the 4 thing the better way to go? Is the cat at the 5 thing? You're sitting after 82 games. I don't have a fucking clue. Should Cat be playing the 4 3 minutes a game, 13 minutes a game, 30 minutes a game? I have no idea which is and like what sort of player he needs to be alongside. Like, where, you know, is Mitch that player? And then there's a whole host of questions that go down from there about the defensive scheme, about, like, you know, what trade-offs did they need to be making, offense versus defense. And that's the part that I think has me the most bummed out. Now, I think they could offer a lot of clarity in the next couple of weeks, or God willing, more than just a couple of weeks, for better or worse. I think they could offer a lot of clarity, hopefully for the better. That's kind of where I'm at, I think, at the end of this.
So would you say there are a lot of questions here?
I would say that there are still a lot of questions. Yes.
Okay. Because it does feel like, and let me know if you disagree, that there's an inconsistency across the board. Maybe not across the board, but do you feel that there's an inconsistency?
With what?
Generally. Do you feel like you have a sense of the identity of this team?
No. I don't feel like I have a sense of the identity of the team at all.
And that's where I struggle as well. Right. Like, and here it's Passover. Just had a Seder the other night with my parents. And there's a big question. Thank you. I'll do my best. It's really hard to not have pasta and bread, but I will try to persevere.
You got this.
I do not. I mean, I will, but I don't. But the real question that gets asked at a Seder is, why is this night different from all other nights? And I don't know, with this Knicks team, it's just like, what's the same? What carries over? What am I expecting? There's that consistency that I wish I had it. And I don't. And maybe it'll appear. Maybe it'll materialize. And this can have nothing about how I feel about how they will perform against the Pistons. It could be a completely different thought. And I don't want to oversee them as a team. But we all know this isn't about the Pistons. Any concerns are about the entirety of the playoffs. You just have to get through the Pistons first. And that's then where I go back to. What is the identity? I
think the reason why you don't have an answer to that question, I don't have an answer to that question either, is like, one, they don't have a signature win this season. They don't have a. I mean, you could make some arguments.
They do.
Which one?
I mean, it depends, right? Because Memphis was a signature.
The fact that you're sitting here,
I understand. Look, I agree. There are against the top teams. Like if you're looking at Boston, no particular, Cleveland, Golden State, Oklahoma City. Can
I rephrase my statement to make it clearer? What I mean is, Lakers. When you think about the high point of this Knicks season, I could ask you that and you might have one answer. And then I could ask 10 different Knicks fans that same question. And those 10 people might have 7 different answers or 8 different answers. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Yes. I think a high watermark was when they won 9 games in a row. Was it?
In 8 December?
Games in a row in December. But the caveat there was look at the competition.
Nobody
gave you playing against. Right. Exactly. We're in agreement. So I am completely in agreement with you that when you look at the best teams in the league, the Knicks have not beaten them. And if you want to say one of the Denver games, fine. That's totally fine.
One of the Memphis games.
Memphis game, right. Yeah, that's totally fine too. But then
Rockets,
those teams are so bunched up, right? There are some, but the fact that there aren't more, that the menu is limited, that's where it's frustrating.
It's not even that the menu is limited. It's that whatever your answer is, and you look at like how they won that particular game that in your opinion was like the best game. They've won all these different games in like different ways. They haven't, which by the way, you could easily, and I might try to spin that into a positive. This team can win in different ways. They have won games with defense. They have won games with offense because of their passing. They have won their games with offense because of their brilliant isolation abilities. They can win in a lot of different ways. They could turn you over. They could stifle you. Like there's a lot of things that they can do. That's a great sign. And I think it should give us some hope going into the postseason, but it is the uncertainty of it all, which you brought up to start. So listen, I think we should get into our questions. I think they'll be revealing in terms of like where we go here. Anything else you want to say about the week or I guess the season?
It's in the rearview mirror. It has to be. That's really everything that we've felt, everything we've talked about. Maybe it seeps through, but the regular season's done. There are 12 teams already eliminated, and there will be a handful more. Is it 10?
12? No, there's 10 teams already eliminated.
10. All right, and then 2, and then the 4 others. So 10 teams eliminated. Knicks are one of the 20. They'll be one of the 16, and let's hope that they're one of the 8.
There you go.
And then on.
Yeah, and listen, if you get to that point, then start having some different conversations. Okay. Do you want to go first with your number 3 question? Or do you want me to go first?
Sure. I'll go first. I'll take it.
Go for it.
All right. I won't say no.
So your third question, we should probably say what we're doing. The top 3 questions heading into Knicks Pistons. So what is your number 3 question?
So do you want me to do the third in importance? Because I can.
Oh, yeah. I think we should go from 3 to 1.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. How will the Knicks force turnovers against the Pistons? That's my number 3. So the Knicks this season were 11th in turnover percentage. If we want to have an arbitrary date of January 1st, turn of the calendar, they've been 7th in the NBA. And since Mitchell Robinson returned, they have been 4th. Now, of course, many of those games maybe played without Jalen Brunson. Not exactly going to be the strongest player defensively in terms of forcing turnovers, but we also know Jalen Brunson's great at drawing charges, one of the best in the league. Cade himself, 22nd in the 22nd percentile among combo guards in turnover percentage. Turnovers has always been something that Cade has struggled with. Very curious to see if they are picking him up full court or not, because if they are able to do that, might be able to get more in his head. I was talking with my buddy who is a Pistons fan, but for the next week and a half to 2 weeks, a mortal enemy, unfortunately. And he was mentioning, just in terms of Cade getting into trouble because of the turnovers and the chaos that the defense can create. So the Knicks do a very nice job, or have done a very nice job this season, of creating opportunities with turnovers. So how they attack Cade specifically, and then the other question of, do you kind of go for the head of the snake, or do you not let Cade's an all NBA player, but do you live with Cade excelling and seal off everyone else as a result? And if it's going to be hey, let's stymie Cade as much as we can, the creating the turnovers portion is going to be a key concept there. So that is my number 3.
So we should mention that one of the most successful turnover games of the season for the Knicks came in their first matchup against Detroit, when they turned them over on 20.7% of their possessions. That is the second highest number of their season, bested only by one of the Memphis games. New York this season, when they forced turnovers on at least, I'll round up, at least 17% of opponents' possessions, they are 9-1. So that's a good number. Looking at Detroit's turnover percentage, there's not really a correlation. They've won games where they've turned it over a lot. They've lost games where they've turned it over a lot. They've won games where they don't turn it over at all. Actually, they're believe it or not, their record when they don't turn it over much is actually pretty poor. They're, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and looks like they're like 6-11 or 6-12, something like that, when they turn it over 10% or less of the time. Which I don't, but I agree with you. I think that is the way you get Cade. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to go right into, I'll just to make the list more interesting. I'll swap 2 of my questions, and I'll go with, how do the Knicks guard Cade Cunningham? So I thought the part of Friday night that was distressing was, and DJ Zulo did a great job of pointing this out on Twitter. He also did a Patreon video. Shout out to all of our patrons. Go subscribe to Knicks Film School Patreon. And he talked about it in the postgame, which is that you had 3 straight possessions where the Cavs brought Brunson into the action. On one possession, there was a hard hedge and recover. On another possession, there was a straight blitz, like just a double team. And then another possession where they attempted to switch Brunson, and none of it worked. It was all bad. And this is with Mitchell Robinson in the game, as opposed to Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, the Knicks had all, strong defenders in the game. And it didn't matter. Now, granted, it was the second night of back-to-back, the whole thing, although, some of the players that were in did not play the previous night. So I'm fascinated to see what happens, because whether it's like for most of the game, or like just during the portions where, like, or for just like the fourth quarter, certainly the Pistons are going to be bringing Jalen Brunson into all of these actions, and you would assume that they're going to have Brunson be on whichever of the smallest player is. Although I think so, like that would be Timmy in the starting lineup. And then Beasley when he comes in, maybe Schroeder, although I'm not sure they want to stick Brunson on Dennis Schroeder. So, like, how do they guard those actions? And obviously a big part of this is who is guarding Cade Cunningham at the time, because, and this is why all of this stuff like overlaps each other. If you have OG Anunoby on Cade Cunningham, that's a positive, because if you have Brunson's guy coming up and setting the screen and it's a small player, OG's probably going to be able to navigate that screen pretty well. On the flip side, if you have OG Anunoby on Cade Cunningham, that means you do not have OG Anunoby on the back line trying to wreak havoc, where Cade Cunningham is perhaps trying to pass out of whatever coverage the Knicks employ in that situation. And then it's like, okay, if you have OG on Cade and the Pistons are just huge behind with the likes of like Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart or Tobias Harris or I always forget which Thompson is it's Amir Thompson, right? On Detroit. The Thompson twin that is on the Pistons. That guy.
Amir Thompson does not exist. You've conflated two different names. There's Amen Thompson. There's Amen Thompson.
Yeah.
And there's Asar Thompson.
Asar Thompson. So there is no Amir Thompson.
There is not. I mean, there is an Amir Thompson. He just does not play professional basketball.
Asar Thompson. I know that Asar is the Piston. So Asar Thompson, who is great at flying in for offensive rebounds and just generally causing havoc. You could throw Ron Holland into this conversation, who certainly hurt the Knicks a lot the other night and has really been coming into his own. He plays at 180 miles an hour every time he's in the game. Like, all of these Pistons exist to wreak havoc, like, at and around the rim. So if you have OG Anunoby up at, guarding Cade, which I think is where they will have him, and I think is where they should have him, there are some other things that it exposes on the back line. And then this gets into some other issues about who the Knicks have on the floor during these scenarios, but I have another question pertaining to that. So that's my first question.
Sure. And then with the back line, with attempts at the rim, especially because of what Duren, his cleanup ability, it's the Knicks limiting the opportunities at the rim, something that they've done a pretty good job of over the course of the year as well. So do they take that away from Detroit essentially as well?
Yeah. I mean, look, we just saw 2 years ago that the Knicks were involved in a playoff series that they memorably won that turned because of offensive rebounding.
Yes.
So the notion that the Pistons can't win a series because of offensive rebound, you were talking about turnover percentage before. The Pistons this season are 12-2, small sample size, but still 12-2 when they've rebounded at least a third of their own misses. And when they do not get offensive rebounds, let's see, they are 3-8 when they don't get, 4-8 when they don't get at least 19% of their own misses. So like they definitely do to some extent live and die with offensive rebounds. It's an issue, and I'm going to save other thoughts on that for a later question that I have.
Okay. Well, so I'll go with my next one, which is, and you talked a little bit about this with the Cade double teams. So my second point is, what are the Knicks going to do with Malik Beasley? Beasley, it's only a 4-game sample size, very small against the Knicks. And that last one went 0 for 3, but we've talked already about the Knicks and what they were showing, what the Pistons were showing. I don't know how important it was for either side, but Beasley was 15 of 27 from 3 against the Knicks. That's 55.6%. Again, across only 4 games. A lot of the shots he's taken this season have been primarily above the break. Now, there was, of course, the one game that the Knicks lost to the Pistons at MSG. The second one, I believe it was the second one, where Beasley hit that clutch shot that really sealed the deal. And especially the one at the end. But he had his marquee moments. So the question, of course, is, can Beasley, with the defensive concerns, number one, is his shot going to be so good that he's still playable? And number two, is his defense going to hold up adequately enough because of how good he can be offensively? Now, with the Knicks, if we're talking about above the break shooting, especially when it comes to Beasley, just some thoughts here as well. When it comes to non-corner threes this season, the Knicks have been 8th in frequency, which is good. But now Cleaning the Glass has them at 20th in accuracy, which is not good. However, if we want to talk
on defense, to be clear,
this is on defense. If we want to talk about a slightly different, a smaller sample size, one that again is not really going to feature a ton of Jalen Brunson, but I wanted to look and I wanted to see, you've got your rim protector back in Mitchell Robinson. How does that extend to the rest of your defense? Well, since February 28th, when Mitchell Robinson returned with the Grizzlies game, the Knicks are, from their defensive perspective, their defense is 10th in allowing non-corner threes for that frequency threshold. And do you want to know what they are in accuracy, John?
What are teams shooting against them from the, sorry, so this is what the sample size is what?
non-corner threes since February 28th. What the accuracy is?
What?
Where they're ranked defensively
above the breakthrough. What? I have no idea. What is it?
They're first.
So teams are not shooting well against them from above the break since February 1st.
Correct.
Okay.
So they're game planning well against, and March is a weird month for a lot of teams in competition. I got to take it with some grain of salt. Didn't have Brunson. There are all sorts of factors, but kind of noteworthy, the player that is killing you frequently, when it's not Cade Cunningham, perhaps, or at least when he's not getting his, it's been Malik Beasley, and the Knicks have done a nice job defending against the above the break shots and the opportunities. And Beasley, that's largely where he is going to be making his money. So I'm fascinated by how the Knicks defend him, especially when you have the Cade double teams. We know that Tobias Harris can do something with the basketball. Again, I know that he didn't have a good experience in Philadelphia and was much maligned, but it is of note that he can still create, and having Beasley spotting up when 3-point shooting has been such an issue for the Knicks systemically under Tibbs, seeing that kind of resilience makes me feel a bit better about where they're at and how someone like that, who has hurt the Knicks this season, how he might hurt them or not in the playoffs.
So I am having trouble disengaging the Malik Beasley conversation from the Jalen Brunson conversation and the Cade Cunningham conversation, the question that I just brought up. Because again, if Beasley's in the game, the odds are that is where Brunson is going to be. That's where they're going to try to have Brunson. And so if you are it's not that Beasley's coming up and setting the screen every time, but I don't think it's an accident that Beasley is springing open for all these threes. And this is a team that has continues to just has not wanted at all to switch Brunson onto Cade. I'm sure you've seen this already, but if you haven't, or for anybody who doesn't know this, with Jalen Brunson on the court against the Pistons this season, the Knicks are giving up 120.2 points per 100 possessions. Now that is obviously a hellaciously bad number. It's not all him. I mean, they're giving up 118.7 with Deuce McBride, who everybody seems to think is like the Cade stopper. And I think there's arguments for and against him getting significant minutes against Cade. Like Precious has the worst defensive rating against the Pistons this season at 77 minutes. The eye opener here is that with Brunson off the court in 49 minutes against the Pistons, the Knicks are giving up just 100 even points per 100 possessions. The next worst guy, or the next highest defensive rating number in terms of an off-court number, is Deuce McBride. When Deuce is off the court, they're giving up 107.0 per 100 possessions, and that's in 81 minutes with Deuce off the court. The point is, when Brunson has not played against the Pistons this year, the Knicks have had no problem stopping Detroit's offense whatsoever. Like, whatever issues Cat has or has not presented against Detroit have not been significant enough to show up at least in the numbers. And I understand, like, he's not all that great at guarding the pick and roll, but if you take away a really poor defender on your perimeter, it makes it a little bit easier to stop that Cade-led pick and roll attack. I don't know what I would do, frankly, if I was Tibbs. Like, opening possession, they bring Brunson into the action. Like, what? You just switch it, like, and see what the Pistons do. Like, all right, here, go to town. We're like, if Cade wants to average 45 points this series, we're gonna let him do it. Do you worry about Brunson getting worn down? Do you worry about Brunson getting into foul trouble? Do you worry about the offensive rebounding issue? Like, it brings a whole host of other things into question, and that's just not something that teams typically do. I don't know. I don't know, but I think it has everything to do with the Beasley thing that you brought up.
The Brunson stat you have is fascinating and makes me ask you, if you were the Knicks, knowing, Brunson's probably not 100% healthy, but again, how many players are really 100% by this point? How much noise do you think is with those 4 games? And again, I know I just mentioned that with Beasley and his shooting, so I'm admitting the sample size is small to begin with.
Yeah.
But with Brunson, I mean, you'd have to anticipate he's probably playing at least 38 minutes, 36 minutes. So if that's your concern, what are you doing, if anything, or do you trust the offense well enough to just say we're willing to bleed points because we know we can get them back on the offensive end?
So I'm gonna use this as a runway to go to my second question, which is how do the Pistons guard Cat? I do not expect us to live in this world at all. And to be clear, I'm not sure I want to live in this world, but there is a world where the Knicks maybe don't play Brunson 38 minutes a game in this particular series. And, look, Cade, I have no idea how many minutes JB Bickerstaff is going to play Cunningham. Maybe he plays him. Maybe he goes full Tibbs and plays him fucking 45 minutes a night. Who the hell knows? I would say that to the extent that you can have Brunson on the floor for all of the non-Cade minutes, certainly want to do that. But even beyond that, if you take Brunson off the floor and then you look at the challenge on both ends, as we just went through, your challenge on the defensive end is going to get much, not simpler, but it's going to get much easier to handle. On the offensive end, you still have Karl Anthony Towns, and you still have a team that I don't think is necessarily really well equipped to guard Cat with like one of these big wings. Now, it's like I don't think we've seen a lot of minutes with Asar Thompson on Karl Anthony Towns. That is certainly a way to go. The reason I think we haven't seen a ton of that is because Asar is guarding Brunson. So again, there's a give and take with all of this. If you take Brunson out of the game, that opens up Asar Thompson as another option to put on Karl Anthony Towns, or at the very least try to switch onto Karl Anthony Towns. If you, let's say, start off Brunson on Mikal Bridges or something. But putting that aside, I do think the Pistons are going to go with the more traditional coverage. I think they're going to challenge their centers, Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, as they did the other night, to guard Cat and prevent him from doing what he does. And if that's the case, if you're going to get traditional coverage against Karl Anthony Towns, like I'm pretty sure there are some ways that the Knicks can make hay with that. Now, it leads to the elephant in the room that I don't know, maybe this is your number one question, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, which is like, is Josh Hart in the game? And if Josh Hart is not in the game, well, then it becomes a really interesting situation, because then you're going 5 out, unless you have, now I'm getting ahead of myself, unless you maybe have Mitchell Robinson in the game, which again creates some other difficult choices for Detroit to have to make in their coverages. My point is that like, I'm not like sitting here right now. And by the way, campaign, it's in a very limited sample size, I'll get what it is right now. Campaign has played 40, a grand total of 40 minutes against the Pistons this season. The Knicks are outscoring Detroit by 24 points per 100 possessions. Again, the defensive rating is 100. The offensive rating is 124. When Payne is off the court this season, it's about even. Giving up a lot of points, but also scoring a decent number of points. So, like, Payne can do some stuff. Maybe we get like, and I don't know if maybe this is going to be one of your questions. Like, are there Shamet McBride backcourt minutes to be had here, where campaign is not on the floor alongside, let's say, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby? That would be interesting. Like, there's some different ways that they could go here. And then hovering over all of this is like, so wait a minute, Macri, you're telling me that the solution to beating the Pistons is to take the next best offensive player off the court, which sounds like the fucking crazy town. And I admit that. And the fact that I even have to sit here and be like, maybe we shouldn't play Jalen Brunson all that many minutes, speaks to some of the difficulties that this series presents. And it's like, man, you're the 3 seed. You should be bringing the action to them. You should be forcing them to respond to you, not the other way around. So like, this is more like something to think about adjusting as the series goes along, but it is something that I've already started to think about.
I think it's fair. And I understand why. And again, it's it's hard for us to be like, well, look at this small sample size. Like, well, but it also doesn't really matter because of the sample size. That is the tricky part.
Well, the Brunson sample size against Detroit is not that tiny. The Payne one is, but the Brunson sample size is, I think, decent.
What if still?
I think games? The Brunson, if you combine the eye test of looking at how the Pistons have attacked Jalen Brunson in this matchup versus their inability to attack anyone else in that same way when Brunson's off the court, I think there's some validity to that specifically.
Of course. I think the only difference with the Beasley portion, it was what he's been doing against the Knicks. He has been doing largely against the rest of the NBA, especially in terms of the shot diet that he's had. But
it's their offense.
Exactly. That's what he's able to do.
Yeah.
But you made a comment about how it should be the Pistons responding to the Knicks, because the Knicks are the favorites here, as they should be. But my last question, it's a very simple one. And it has to do with exactly the problem that you highlighted, which is, why are we talking about the Pistons and how the Knicks are responding to the Pistons, but instead of the Pistons responding to the Knicks? And I'm leaning into that in the same way, like not the way you're saying it, but in a question of how will the Pistons' physicality impact the Knicks? What decision-making do the Knicks have? And this is still the sort of thing where you want to set the tone and have the other person or the other team react. You want to have the upper hand. There are going to be adjustments. Pistons are a physical, I don't know if violent is necessarily the right word here, but I view it as like, hey, that is a fight club that loves to play basketball, and they're really good at basketball. So it's the sort of thought of, okay, well, you are being physical. And what's something that Knicks fans have felt, I'm just saying consensus here, not singling out, not everyone's going to feel this way, but there have been times where this Knicks team has felt on the softer side, on the tender side. Maybe perhaps they are not that in your face Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo swagger. It's more of a quiet confidence where it's okay. Well, maybe you're going to throw a punch. We're not necessarily going to fight back because we can beat you. But then the problem feels like, well, are the Knicks actually able to do that? And so for this, I would imagine you touched on Josh Hart. For me, the question with is Josh Hart logging significant minutes. Sure, it could be had for this one. But if anything, it's more of a next series if the Knicks do indeed get to that position point. For this one, it's really more of when the Pistons punch you in the mouth, and you know that they're going to, because JB Bickerstaff has the experience against a Knicks team, as we've talked about. How physical are they going to be to set the tone? How are the Knicks going to try to play their game, and the Pistons, are they going to blow that up and just try to get the Knicks as frazzled as they can possibly be? And as a result, how are the Knicks responding to that? I would imagine they would still play their own game. The Knicks can play physically. They're just not as aggressive, perhaps, as maybe the Pistons might be. So it's really, yes, it's about Josh Hart. He'll be fighting for boards. That's not really a question. Karl Anthony Towns, we know he's going to have contested rebounds as well, and there can be some seal-offs, but they're not going to get away with calls. The Knicks have struggled with certain calls. There have been so many moments where Cat will be fouled and he will not get the call, and he will be lying on the ground with his hands up in the air, wondering where the call has gone. Meanwhile, the other team is pushing the pace in transition and perhaps scoring an easy bucket. And in the playoffs, whistles get swallowed a little bit more. So how are the Knicks able to deal with, they're less likely to get calls. Their free throw rate has not been great this year. So if they're not getting to the line, if they're expecting physical brands of basketball, how is that impacting their ability to get back on defense and play in transition? Because if they're scoring a lot right in front of the rim, you're going to want someone to help blow up those actions, especially as they're moving around. And if you've got Beasley trailing, who we just talked about, Beasley serving as a trailer above the break, and he's got a wide open shot, you're creating opportunities. So if you're the Knicks, it's playoff mindset. The Knicks are a well-seasoned team when it comes to the playoffs. The Pistons, 4 of their 10 healthy players, I don't expect all 10 to play, but only 4 of them have had playoff experience. Now, it doesn't mean that 60% is still a lot, but they're going to be leaning on the Tim Hardaway Jr.'s and Tobias Harris's of the world, Dennis Schroeder, guys who have had the ball in their hands before. So that's not really the major concern. It's someone like Isaiah Stewart trying to throw the game plan, out the window. What the old adage about everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Perhaps the Knicks take that literally. Maybe that is something that could happen. And if that's the case, how are they protecting themselves so that they can have the best series possible?
So as usual, our minds are one and the same, because my number one question is, do the Knicks size up / will they be comfortable sizing down? I don't think it's a coincidence / accident that Mitchell Robinson just played his highest minute total of the season. Went out there, played an entire first quarter versus the Cavs. Most consecutive minutes he's played this season. He played 33 minutes, highest point total or highest minute total of the season. There is I think a very good chance that this is a Mitchell Robinson series. It was certainly a Mitchell Robinson series a couple of years ago when the physicality of the Knicks now overtook the Cavs. Now, I think that is the way that the Knicks beat the Cavs in that series is different from how people are talking about the physicality of the Pistons in this series. This is more just like more of a bruising. They will literally get into scuffles and sorts of things of that nature. I don't know that I care about that stuff, or even Detroit, getting into their heads. The Knicks should be able to handle that, but there is definitely an aspect of the Knicks getting pushed around. I think that's a very real thing. And we should note that Mitchell Robinson has yet to play a single minute against the Pistons this year. I think that's notable. So if the Knicks scale up and play more of Mitch with Cat, or just flatly more of Mitch, what does that mean for the rest of the people on the floor? And this is where the second part of the question comes in. Will they feel comfortable scaling down? And what I mean by that, I think what we've seen, if you want to go back a few weeks, if you want to just take it the last 3 games or whatever, from Landry Shamet, I think this is a real thing. And the fact that this team has become allergic to shooting threes, and this fucking guy goes out there and hunts threes like he's wearing a green and white jersey, and plays his home games in Massachusetts. That's a big deal, I think. Now, again, if you want to counter that and be like, hold on, they've won 51 games. They're the 3rd seed. They didn't do all that because of Landry freaking Shamet. So now you're going to upend your game plan to try to get this guy minutes. I respect that. I absolutely respect that viewpoint, and which is why I say all of this with some level of trepidation and not with all the confidence in the world. I think it's an interesting proposition that this guy is finally seeming to find his groove as a shooter, and it is something the Knicks really need. But against this Pistons team in particular, you can only play so many small players at once. And so you have Campaign, you have Landry Shamet, you have Deuce McBride, and oh, by the way, you have Jalen Brunson. And that's 4 guys who they could all be members of the rotation. I'm certainly don't expect Tibbs to go to multiple of those guys for long stretches of time at once. So, I thought Steve Popper had an interesting tweet earlier today saying in which he kind of implied that Campaign might be situational. It might not be a member of the rotation, which is hey, I get it. So and then at the nexus of all of this, as he is with every conversation you can have about this team, is Josh Hart, because it's what does Josh Hart go out there and do? He makes up for a lot of these size issues. He goes and he crashes the boards and he gets or he helps counter the physicality and all of that shit. And he's going to be turned up to 11. It's the playoffs. It's what Josh Hart lives for. This is what he does. This is what he's here for. So you're going to remove that from the equation to get what? To get more Mitch, and you don't want multiple non-shooters. It's there's a lot of compromises here that, as the Knicks are trying to figure out the best way to attack this team, it's unclear which is the best direction to go. Which is not to which is not to say that they are screwed. Just because you're not sure of which, it's kind of alludes to our earlier conversation. Just because you're not 100% sure of which way to go, and like what the best makeup is, it doesn't mean you can't go out there and win in different ways and all that sorts of stuff. So, but there are a lot of questions, and I am not going to sit here and pretend that I know the answers right now. I think they're going to unfold as we move along in the series.
Absolutely. And to your point, they have so many different options. Where yes, it would make sense if Cameron Payne weren't logging a ton of minutes, because it doesn't have to necessarily be 48 minutes minus Jalen Brunson's minutes equals Cameron Payne's minutes.
And I don't think it will.
It very well may not. And Payne's had a great season, but to the Shamet point, as a catch and shoot option, it's not about the best team that wins it. It's not the hottest team. And Landry Shamet has been red hot. Even if you take the Nets game aside, he's been tremendous over the last 9 or 10 games in terms of what he's been able to provide. He's finally clicking, and he's probably been the most consistent Knick of the last couple weeks.
Shamet?
I mean, do you have someone else in mind?
Oh, no, he's in the conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's don't be afraid. If it's physical, I understand it. But to your point of the non-spacers, if Mitchell Robinson is your best option from a physicality, from an offensive rebounding standpoint, all of that, and you're worried then about limiting your shooting, and you have Landry Shamet there, it would be negligence to not. And I understand the game tells you what to do, right? That's what Thomas Jamas tells us all the time. But it's truly about, if you have Josh Hart there and you are worried about the spacing, and you've got Landry Shamet, who's a flamethrower right now, that's your guy. Josh Hart can do all the things that you love. And to your point, this Knicks team got here not because of Landry Shamet, but also circumstances change. And this is a different team than we've seen, than the one that was firing on all cylinders that we felt great about months plural ago. So if Landry Shamet can be your guy, and if that is like your 7th, 8th man, because running a 9-man rotation in the playoffs, it's by no means impossible, but someone's going to suffer. One of those 9 players is going to get the shorter end of the stick. At least that's what history tells us.
Yep.
And if it's Josh Hart, if it's too much Josh Hart, it could be less is more. And that's a worry that I have for this playoffs. Play him based on the situation.
Lastly, I'm going to say all these conversations about toughness and physicality and stuff. I know some people are not going to want to hear this. The Knicks should be able to win this series with offense. I just double checked. I checked the stat like a few days ago, and I just double checked it now. When they have an effective field goal percentage this season over 53%, they are 44-8. It's 44-8. And when they don't shoot well, when they have a effective field goal percentage of under 49%, they are. Oh, and actually, sorry, the 44-8 number may go up by 1 after today, because I'm not sure what their effective field goal percentage was today, but I think it was pretty good. But when it's 49% or less, they are 0-12. Like, I think a lot of this comes down to the Knicks have to figure out a way to hit shots. And I understand that runs counter to what I was saying before about Brunson being on the court. And which is why I think, like, again, if we're talking about 42 minutes of Brunson versus 36 minutes of Brunson, like, I think that's fine. You're not, playing Jalen Brunson 25 minutes a game. Obviously, he needs to be out there. You got to figure out ways to have him out there. But you have to put lineups out there that are going to be able to put the ball in the hoop, and maybe Shamet helps you with that. Yeah.
The effective field goal percentage, according to Cleaning the Glass, from today's game was 52.3%.
Oh, okay. So they just under it. So they didn't rack up. They didn't make that stat much higher today. Okay. That's all I got. Look, there's going to be a ton more from Knicks Film School this week. The experts, Benji and DJ, are going to be getting on and doing their thing. There's going to be Patreon content. Andrew is going to do some kind of a preview. I'll be back with Fred. I think we're recording in the middle of this week to do our third annual Dean Wade draft. So there's going to be a lot more, but like, I don't know. I feel like from this conversation alone, I think we already have a decent idea of like what this is going to be about, what we have in store. And a lot of it's going to be, all right, now we got to see how it plays out. Like it's in any good playoff series. And I, you know what, I'll walk back to the comments I made after the Pistons game. I do think this is going to be a good series. I mean, I said that night, I thought the games would be close. I was pretty steadfast that I think the Knicks would win in 5 or 6. I still think they will win in 5 or 6 games because I just believe that they're the better team. But I do think these games are going to be close. And I think they need to play well. And if they play well, like, they'll win. It's that simple. They're the better team. If they play well, they'll win, no matter all this other stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I will not be making another appearance before the series starts, so I will give my prediction in that case. I will go with Knicks in 5.
Okay.
Now, this would be the first Pistons win in the playoffs since George W. Bush was in office. So if that were the case, then that would be a congratulations to them on their first victory since 2008. It rarely plays out like how I would envision it. So I'll just tell you what my anxiety is, and then I'll let it waft away, and then the games will be played, which is I feel like the Knicks lose game 1 and then gentlemen sweep in the sense of the Pistons are, again, they could win in 4 games. They could win in 6. They could lose the series. So many different possibilities. I feel pretty good about them winning this series, even with all of the concerns. Those are still concerns that would exist even outside of this series. I don't want to overlook Detroit, but I can see Detroit coming in there and trying to mess with the Knicks, getting in their heads, the Knicks adjusting, evening the series, going back to Little Caesars, Pizza, getting a win, and then winning another one. And then they come home and perhaps they have their first home series clinching playoff series since long time. I think it was 99, maybe. Sure. It was 2000, one of those years. So it's been a while. That's what I've got. I've got Knicks in 5.
I don't know what I'm going to predict sitting here right now. I would probably rank in order of likelihood in terms of Knicks wins. I would do Knicks in 6, then Knicks in 5, then Knicks in 7, then Knicks in 4. I'm sure I would have some Pistons likelihoods in there as well. But yeah, I think Knicks in 5 is a fair prediction, and I would very much sign up for that to come true. All right, Jeremy, anything else from you before we get out of here?
It's all for me, crazy season. It's a brand new year. Let's go Knicks.
It is. Let's go Knicks. All right. Everybody out there, thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. If you didn't already, check out the Shump interview, which I thought went very well.
That was what I meant to. I stored it. You asked me. Yeah, I forgot it. You did a great job with the Shumpert interview, honestly.
Thank you. It was a great team effort from everybody, and I'm happy it came together in the way it did. Shout out again to Torches NYC for accommodating that. The Polanco brothers, who were in partnership with them, they did a fantastic job. And thanks to Shump. He was awesome. So stay tuned for all the great content coming your way on this channel in the coming days and weeks. Support the show in any way you can. We appreciate that. And we'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.